I was gonna say I haven't done anything like this, so
Yeah, no, don't.
tell me
Hey, we're just gonna have a conversation like we did
the other day.
the other day.
Yep,
So Mason McCallister from Bells, right? Your actual address is Bells, right?
yep.
So this has been a kind of whirlwind relationship since we met. I've been following the data center growth and projects, the conversations, the town halls,
Mhm.
all that stuff. Sounded it caught my attention because the numbers were big, the promises were big. There was words like tax abatements, property tax relief,
Yep,
bunch of things coming into the equation. Um, Myself, sounds like you did too, sat through the Texas Oversight Committee meeting on data centers.
very long meeting.
Did a little kind of follow up video. That's how we met
Yep,
only a couple days ago, and then since then have just been taking deeper and deeper dives. And I think this is interesting. We're going to get into your story because it's intense. I mean, even this morning, I said a little prayer this morning because I'm like, this is, I feel for your family. There's so many of us in this county and in the state that just aren't directly affected
yep.
by this. Will we all be? 100%. But right now, there is this, just hearing your story the other day and thinking about, I'm like, this is a tough thing to wake up to every single day.
Very much so.
We have, millions of acres of land all around here. We're on the cusp in Grayson County to be this explosive new county. We have been trained to, you know, the government hasn't come through for us in many, many years, maybe ever, but particularly in the last 6 years. So every one of us has a right to question what's going on. And there's this weird undertone that you shouldn't be questioning what's going on.
Yep.
We're doing everything in the good nature of your future. And we know that that's BS. It
Wrong.
hasn't worked
Yep.
out like that. And I was thinking about in my prayer this morning, I was just these things need to be addressed with patience, smart conversation. Picket signs and loud mouths aren't going to do anything.
Nope.
Having the ability to rally your community to just ask the right questions
Very much.
is what needs to happen. And I got that perspective from you very clearly the other day. It's like this is not only is it directly affecting your family, and we'll talk about that story because it's intense, um, but it's directly affecting all of us. Um, there's a lot of moving pieces to this, and so I'll give you a little bit of my perspective on this because, and this is what interests me, and I've been following a lot of Grace. We started this little small business a couple years ago here. We're recording right now here in the feed store, our coffee company in the background, and we had all rainbows and unicorns type feeling about it. Like, wait, we're just going to start a small store. We've just been beautifully fortunate to have this opportunity. If we could put some cash out, we'll hire all of the high school kids and our kids, and we'll get to work together side by side with our kids. And since the day we made that decision, we've been fighting every step of the way.
Yep.
And the customers, everybody's been wonderful. The support has been amazing. That's what keeps us going. But we realize that it's not a conspiracy theory. There is nobody who collects tax dollars in this county or this state or in this country that has the best interest of its people. 100%.
That's the way I feel too.
And we've fought that. And so when the data center conversation came up, I said this is an interesting one because us now here we are supplying feed and we're in the country and we love this county, we love our neighbors. This is the American dream as far as we're concerned. We love it. Um, and we want to be a bigger business, and we want to because we get bigger, then we're doing more for our community. We want all that stuff. But the thing that interested me about the data center development was prior to this, I spent my career on the very early stages of tech, healthcare, and we had to do these meetings where we had to convince, you know, big companies as well as big communities that what we were doing was for the benefit of them. And that's that's what it looked like was happening with the data center. So these big companies are coming in and they're convincing that everything's going to be great. This is great for your future. It's great for your community. Okay, that just leaving that on the surface is very similar to what we did in. I worked in mobile tech, mobile when mobile had there was 1% of smartphone penetration in the country. So we were having these big conversations, and people were like, "What are you talking about?" And it just obviously, as we know, um, it grew there. And then in healthcare, we had to build a physical plant in these communities that were tight knit, growing, just like communities like Grayson County and Collin County. And we had to go in and convince them, hey, I understand there's concerns. This is how we translate those concerns. This is what we're doing. There's jobs, there's all sort of stuff. And by the way, it saves you a lot of money. It was just a very unique model. But the thing that we had that I am not seeing in this conversation was the case study. We could bring people from these communities, whether it was Arizona, California, wherever we were having these discussions, we could bring them to Texas and show them, physically show them, and have them talk. We weren't hiding anything. Physically show them the impact of these innovative healthcare facilities that we were building and what they and how they're going to impact their community.
Yep.
And that won the conversation a lot of times. And sometimes we moved on. It was it just wasn't the right fit. The property wasn't right, whatever the case is. But we never tried to address the weakest link in the room and convince them. Okay, transition over to data centers now. Okay, the data center conversation is a very sophisticated one. These
Mm-hmm.
are very smart people.
Yep.
We'll talk about Rhett, Black Mountain, all these guys. It's not a dumb guy.
Nope.
They know they'll win the negotiation 100% of the time if they're sitting in front of city councils, if they're sitting in front of the Texas Oversight Committee,
Yep.
if they're sitting in front of your county commissioner, because they are going to promise the world.
And they word it so nicely.
Not so nicely. And we'll talk about some of the research and things that you got. But so here's where we're at. Let's talk about the ecosystem. The data center is essentially going to serve the data needs of the future. That's the presentation. We all know. I mean, even in this country store that we have, I mean, we got AI running some ads. We have, every single transaction that comes through is separated, it's stored, it's data stored, there's security, there's everything. We know that our worlds are running on data, stored data, and all those other things. We're not smart enough to understand the actual need of that.
Right.
Right. It's not, but here's the thing that's clear. Nobody's talking about the need. The benefactors of this is it's the tactic to say, hey, our futures are solely based on stored data, whether it's crypto, AI, whatever the case is, all those buzzwords. Our future relies on that, and that these data centers are specific to those needs.
Yep.
Okay, that's kind of an easy conclusion, easy answer, but it hasn't been very clear on what those needs are. Nobody has laid it out. And then secondly, the um, the benefactors of these data centers, it's clear, are the developers of the data center.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it. Right now, in this current landscape, the people that stand to benefit the most are the developers.
Developers and the counties for short term for tax purposes, because it'll be a cash cow short term for yeah, it'll be huge for them short term, like I said.
Yeah, and that's enticing. That's enticing local politicians and the local political
Yep. They dangle the carrot
landscape.
and they're like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it.
So again, for me, my position, I wasn't for or against. I'm against the conversation because it's a bad one. There's lies.
Yep.
It's clearly lies. There's clearly other opportunities and other places to put these things.
They can go anywhere
They can go anywhere they want. They end every sentence with, we have the money. And they're clearly dangling that carrot of solving a lot of your problems, especially as local politicians, problems they can't solve, they haven't been able to solve since COVID, stagnant growth, big box moving in, all those other things. And then one last point I want to get into your story. The last point is here's the things that I get frustrated by, because this is a huge conversation that everybody needs to be involved in.
Yep.
If you want a future in Grayson County or in this part of Texas, you need to be in Fannin County, wherever the case is. You need to be involved in this conversation, because here's what happens. This is not something that we just erase if they become irrelevant. We don't just erase this. We do. Um, um, these are 2 million plus square foot facilities, sometimes 5 square miles, sometimes 10 square miles. We're talking 3,000 acres, 5,000 acres, 6,000 acres. If they become irrelevant, this is a stain that you just don't erase. And this is also a facility that you don't repurpose.
Very much. They're so specifically built for data centers.
Yep.
Another industry doesn't just come in and be like, oh, I can use that building.
Yeah.
No.
And I've been following closely the HB1 visa fraud in Frisco and Prosper and stuff. And I feel for the people, but standing in front of your city council now as the minority in your community, and your schools are overrun, they got 18, 20 people living in these homes. There's no rules. It's just become a community that's catering to these multi-generational HB1 visa holders that aren't even using and paying the same tax rate or anything like that. And now sitting in front of your city council after the fact, this is not going to do anything.
Yep.
And we cannot be standing up and arguing with our county commissioners and our state representatives when the concrete is laid.
When the dozers show up,
it's too late. It's too late. Please, if you're listening to this and follow, Mason and follow this conversation, get involved.
Yep. Because
you will not be able to be involved after, like I said, as you said, when the dozers show up, it's too late. You're front and center. You're in it. Tell us a little bit about, your story, how this is directly affecting your family, your family's land, and how you're a part of it.
So the short story was middle of February 2025 is when we were approached about the data center. And we quickly said no, that was the end of it. And I remember then, and I told a lot of people, I said, when I told him no, he hung his head, and I got the feeling he knew something that I didn't. And I didn't know what that was, but I told everyone, I was like, he knows something that we don't, but I didn't.
This was a representative from the data.
This
company.
was a representative that identified himself as partnered up with some energy guys.
Okay.
And he did tell me AI data center. He didn't tell me the name, but he told me exactly where they wanted it and all of that. And I said no. He's a local guy. That was the end. After that, I called my family. I told them all, that was the end of it. And I called my neighbors and I told them, I'm like, hey, I think they're Black Mountain's trying to touch their original stuff they bought a few months prior.
Okay.
And I was like, to do that, they got to go through you or me. And I was like, we're good. We'll hold strong. And of course, my neighbors were like, oh yeah, we got you. We'll let you know if we hear anything. And they didn't tell me anything. Like I was following up with them all of 2025, probably once or twice a month. Like, if you heard anything. And then it was December 7th, was a Sunday. We were driving home and we decided that we were going to roll the windows down and let our kids yell, hey, grandma, and so we went down this one specific road and I see survey markers everywhere. Mm-hmm. And in my gut at that moment, I knew exactly what it was. And of course, we reached out to the neighbors. The neighbors confirmed they were selling, would not tell us who. But they were trying to assure us that there was buffer zones and we had nothing to worry about. The next day was, so we saw the survey markers on Sunday. Monday was when we talked to the neighbors. Tuesday, we see the survey crew out there. And so this is December 9th. So we send my wife down there. My wife talks to them. They show us who the buyer was and they showed us what they were surveying and all of that. And immediately I'd already knew the most likely scenario, but I was like, I need to learn about data centers. And I went the next day down to DFW and I was driving around. I talked to neighbors that live next to data centers. I listened to them. 100% of the people that I talked to said they did not like it. And they told me stories like, oh, they told us to call this number if we ever had a problem. And they were like, we call that number and nobody answers. And so I go home, that next day, and on the drive home, I'm like, okay, there's a very high degree of likelihood that I'm not going to like living next to this. And I was like, I need to learn more about them. And I have spent pretty much since that day, every day, learning about this and talking to people. I've talked to retired people in the industry. Yep. Anyone that I can talk to. And the conclusion I've come to is this is a bum deal for everyone except for the counties in the short term, because they're going to get a big cash cow for a short term, or if you're running the data center. And I'm like, if you're a neighbor, not a good deal. If you live in the area, not a good deal, and that's when, when I made my post, I was like, if we're going to fight this, I'm like, we need to do it before the dozers show up. And so that my plan was, I was like, I'll make the post. I'm like, maybe it'll get some people involved. I had no idea how many people were going to see my post and all of that. But
obviously a lot of people did.
A lot.
It's just a conversation going on in a lot of places around the country, not just here in Texas. This has nothing to do with just this county, just you. Your story is being repeated all over the country. 100%. We need to know that.
And if you look back, so I made my, I found out December 9th that it was what the data center was coming. I spent the next 6 weeks talking to everyone. I did not make my Facebook until the end of January, and that's when I decided, I was like, I'm gonna let everybody know. So I did 6 weeks of research, family land, emotions aside, before I was like, I'm gonna fight this. And I told my elected officials, I told everyone, anyone that would listen. They did not care. They did not. They acted like they didn't believe me. They said we haven't been approached, and I'm like, yeah, but there's permits that have been filed and approved. I'm like, I can show you the survey markers are still there to date. Like you can go drive around and see the survey markers. And that's when I was like, I need to go talk to Rhett and get it from him. And I was like, if me getting it from the owner, the CEO of Black Mountain, is not good enough for, our elected officials, I'm like, I don't know what else to tell you. But there was, and I went down to Fort Worth a bunch, and I was listening to those guys, and, they were asking the wrong questions. They were asking, T-ball questions, right? The simple ones like, is this going to make my electric bill go up? And I'm like, there's a whole lot more to this than just that. And, so that's kind of where I got to, me and you met.
And so everybody knows, Rhett, Rhett Bennett is the CEO of Black Mountain. Now there's it's a hard company to find information on. They have quite a few different business channels. But they are located in Fort Worth. Most likely they put feet on the ground here. And it's like straight out of a movie, man.
It sounds like a Yellowstone episode.
I know the name Black Mountain, and this guy walks around with his tie off just to try to be relatable to the people and things along those lines. And, the thing, and, we can rap a little bit about this because I know you have some good data. I've gone down the rabbit hole. You've gone down the rabbit hole. And again, I'm not looking for, when I'm doing this, I'm not looking for things wrong. I want something to say, oh, okay, now you can convince me.
I understand it.
I'm trying to. The only good news I find is usually sponsored by somebody who benefits. An energy supplier, whatever the case is. Bad source data. If you look at good third-party data, you see something very clearly. Let's talk about what's the Texas Oversight Power Committee?
Oh gosh.
I know it. Sorry. ERCOT.
Oh,
so the ERCOT testimony was the first part of the Texas Oversight Committee. He made it clear that the potential power needed. So there's kind of three parts to this. There's an exceptional amount of power. There's an exceptional amount of water, and then there's a undisclosed, very large amount of pollutants that nobody's talking about associated with these. Okay, both air, water, groundwater. ERCOT had a neutral stance, I would say, in that their focus is grid reliability. They want to keep the grid moving. The storm of 2021, the ice storm, the days below that put ERCOT on the map. Everybody was really upset about the grid performance and everything else. He was given estimates in 2024. It's now 2026. Those estimates are 7 times higher. I unfortunately spent time learning about what a megawatt is and everything else. So we're talking about 410,000 megawatts now of potential energy needs on the grid. That powers 100 million homes. Okay, we need to put that in perspective. So this is what the data centers are projected to need in Texas. Right now, there's 10.9 million homes in Texas. That's 10 Texas's worth.
Yep.
And this is all by 2030.
Yep.
This is the need over the next 4 years, is to power the equivalent of powering 100 million homes in Texas.
Nuts.
And that is just blown over. And then you listen to when they some of the questions to the ERCOT CEO, Pablo Vegas, I think was his name, which I thought his testimony was good. I honestly did. He's very smart. He's very informative and everything along those lines. But the questions to him, every single person in that oversight committee just kept asking the same thing: is the ratepayer going to be affected? And he had really no answer.
No.
Because he doesn't know. If you're telling me that you now need 10 times the power that we're currently using to power the homes, not even the businesses, just the homes in Texas, and they're saying, well, we're going to require the data center to build their own power infrastructure. They're essentially saying that they have to build the infrastructure that would power the state right now.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
100%. It sounds like BS to me that doesn't fall onto the ratepayer in some sense. Now, that was my question. Okay, go to Ohio, go to Iowa, go to Northern Virginia.
Yep.
The ratepayer rate of electricity in Northern Virginia has gone up 200% higher than inflation.
Yep.
Over the last 10 years. Northern Virginia is also the highest concentration of data centers in the country.
And cancer rates.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that too. That's the reality of power. Okay. So now your situation in Belle Savoy, they're calling it the Belle Savoy.
He said they were going to start in Savoy, so maybe call it Savoy.
Right,
it's right on the line.
So in your situation, it's becoming clear if you zoom in from above why your spot's looking attractive.
Yep.
There's an old power plant.
Yep.
Out there in what lake is that?
Valley Lake.
Valley Lake. There's a power plant.
3.
Got the highway, got rail, got all those things. There's 3 power plants.
There's natural gas pipeline.
There's natural gas pipeline.
Right.
So if they're required to build their power infrastructure, you're right there. So the pressure, that's a huge pressure point.
Yep.
That is a lot of power. That is a lot.
And there's
of
a big
power.
substation already there.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And the best plant.
Yeah. So the best plant, which is the lithium battery storage or production. Storage. Yeah. So, which you can't, should it catch fire, it would be a
awful deal.
A catastrophic environmental disaster.
Our volunteer fire department cannot put that fire out. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the training.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one way to get in and out of that place. So if the fire's coming at you, there's nothing they can do.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear that nobody knows the direct result of the power output that's needed and how that falls on the payer.
Yep.
The case studies don't look good.
Nope.
And so again, a question that's not being asked in these forums is, if you look at Northern Virginia, if you look at Ohio, if you look at Des Moines, Iowa, all those other things where the ratepayer is getting affected, why can we safely say here in the plant that they want to build by you that it's not going to affect it's not right.
I agree.
It's not right.
And that was my thing too, is when I looked at all the other states and I saw all the complaints they were having, I was like, chances are we're going to have those same complaints here. So I'm like, we need to ask these questions now. Like, what happens if this happens?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm like, we need to get the community involved. We need to get people fired up. We need to get people asking the right questions. And we need to educate the commissioners and all the elected officials before Black Mountain shows up with their, engineers, and they try to educate them.
Yep. And then let's talk about these 3 tiers one more, because it's important.
Yep.
Because we as a community have to understand that, again, and that those lines start buzzing and the water starts getting sucked out of the ground, that there's nothing we can do to reverse it.
Yep.
Okay. Water needs. Okay. data is getting smaller and smaller. The servers and the storage is getting hotter and hotter, and it has to be cooled. So there's water needs. Northern Virginia is using almost 1 billion gallons a day of water to cool. 1 billion a day. Okay. They're using more water than any other thing in the state of Virginia. Okay. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of gallons a day for your proposed plant. Okay. And there's two types of cooling. There's this evaporation cooling, which is a little bit of an older, most data centers today are using evaporation. So the water gets wasted essentially. Now, the people trying to convince you will say, oh, it goes up into the clouds and it comes down as rain and it's recycled that way. Okay. Second grade's over. So and then now they're talking about these recirculation coolers, closed loop. So the water goes through cooling pipes, it wraps around the servers, and then it wraps around the servers, and then it cools the server stack.
Yep.
The issue with both evaporation and the recirculation is, first of all, the recirculation is not forever.
Nope.
It has to be redone.
It's got to go some either. Yeah.
And now, when you go to the independent studies in Northern Virginia and the counties in Northern Virginia, there's a high level of particulate pollution in that wastewater.
Yep.
Because there's antifreezes, there's coolers, there's a whole bunch of other there's a whole bunch of other very specific particulates in that.
Yeah, they'll use anti-corrosives and all that. Yeah. It goes with the fill.
Yeah. There's anti-corrosives, there's antifreezes. I found a bunch of kind of geeked out on some of the chemicals. Totally makes sense. I'm sure there's particulate matter in the bottlers and all the other stuff that use water and the TI plant down there. But again, you need to go find that out, because when you look at this, they go, oh, it's just forever and we can return it to your wastewater facility and it can be reused. The problem is these are forever chemicals. Forever chemicals do not get depleted in the wastewater. So again, day one that plan is built at your place. You have your power grid at max, okay? And then that plant will be using more water than most of the county as a whole, just that plant. And it'll be recirculating, be going into your aquifers, be going into your wastewater, and there is forever chemicals in that. That's, again, something you need to know.
Everyone needs to know.
Everyone needs to know about how this is being handled. The other part is in the evaporation and the backup systems, there's air pollutants. Now they're finding those same forever chemicals in the air pollution. So most of these facilities, whether they're brand spanking new, modern, will all have diesel backup generators that aren't used only in special cases. They're used in heightened power needs. So if it's 110 degrees out for 6 months, it's going to be fired up. And now you have diesel generators going. And then the last one is noise pollution, probably the lowest moment of the Texas Oversight Committee as far as I'm concerned.
Briefly touched on it, yeah.
Briefly touched on it. Terrible answer all over the place. But let's just understand how these very sophisticated companies and the thing that blew my mind, the National Coalition of Data Center Developers, conveniently based in DC, who will never mention any of this stuff. One of them took us on a 5-minute master class in avoiding the question. Went all over the place, only to conclude with, don't worry about it. It won't affect your hearing. It's no louder than a 3-lane highway. Do you... I have this I'm surrounded by this beautiful land. I know it's growing. I don't want it to sound like a 3-lane highway.
No.
Okay. And then we made this point earlier, but people really need to understand this. These are 60, 70, 80 foot high buildings, millions of square feet. Okay. It's not going to get buried into the back of the property where you don't see it. Yeah. So that's a huge component. And guess what they can be used for in the future? Nothing. Nothing. There's no, and now when you and I were talking, you had some really good information about like even some of the legacy data centers. I think the lifespan is 10 years or something like that. Like it's not very long.
Yeah. So these are normal data centers. Over the last 40 years, I read a study where 94% of them do not make it to age 25. And so those are normal data centers, not AI. AI changes all the time. I'm hearing that they change every 3 years. They're, that they're updating their software or whatever it is. And so chances are an AI data center is going to have a shorter lifespan than a normal data center. And my favorite argument is land use, because like you said, once they take this and they build whatever they're going to build, like, it's going to be there forever. And I'm like, pound for pound, or acre for acre, jobs per acre for a data center, it's garbage. It's trash.
Oh yeah. We'll talk about the BS on the job data too.
And so I'm trying to tell everybody, I'm like, this is a bad deal long term. Short term, it's great. Bad deal, or my kids will see the negative impacts of this data center.
Yeah.
And again, nobody wants to listen until unless if you're going to make money off this data center. Those are the people that are all for it.
Yeah. I find it, on a sidebar, because you just hit on a point that I thought was interesting. Was I made 2 videos. One was like, I was like, whoa, calling BS here.
Yep.
These developers they're going to build and then hope they can just pull data in, which that's the business model, right? I mean, nobody's working for Google, nobody's working for Amazon Web Services, nobody's working for AI. They're just going to build it and then suck in. And again, which is why I'm arguing that we have crumbling infrastructure everywhere. I understand we need them. We don't need them in your backyard.
Right.
We don't need them along Lake Texoma. We don't need them along. We have parking lots. We have downtown infrastructure. We have high rises that aren't being used anymore. If you really have that much money,
do it there.
Do it there.
Yep.
So it was funny because there's a lot of people who advocate for certain things, and then here in this county we got the batch plant discussion. Right. TCEQ is this. Greg Abbott, if you happen to listen to this, or one of your cronies listening to this, TCEQ needs to go. Yep. That is it's a bloated, oversight committee that is bleeding us out of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. It's all BS. It's all a funneling system to the NGOs and everything else that are, and that's not conspiracy. I did enough research on that because they beat us up over this silly septic tank thing. It needs to go. They don't need to be involved in this conversation because it's going to push it in the wrong way.
Yep.
But I was surprised to see, all the same people that were like, picket sign PO'd about batch plants, about rail yards and everything else. We're like, oh, well, this is not that big of a deal. And then you find out that they're making money on sourcing out electricians or whatever. They stand to make a few bucks on this. So I think the bigger kind of stab in the back for the community that needs to be addressed again is that the tax abatements and the job promises.
Yep.
Let's talk about the jobs for a second. The Des Moines data center. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's hundreds of millions. They were given hundreds of millions of dollars of abatements. People need to understand what abatements are. Abatements are incentives.
Yep.
Black Mountain is going to, hopefully no, but they're potentially going to build a data center on your Grayson County, Fannin County, are going to give them hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks.
They're going to at least try to negotiate on either side of the county for tax breaks.
Yeah. They're going to give them tax breaks on a piece of paper that has guarantees for future jobs.
Yep.
What people really need to understand, that in a place like Des Moines and even some of the places here, they're talking about 10 jobs, 20 jobs, 30 jobs. Let's put that in perspective for we have a 4-acre little store here. Okay. We have 12 employees here.
Yep.
We've guaranteed 12 jobs.
Yep.
Okay. That's more than half of the job promises from these data centers for future data centers for hundreds of millions in tax breaks.
Yep.
Ask me how many tax breaks we got.
Probably none.
We got 0. Ask me how many grants we got. 0. Okay. Nothing. And you're going to tell me that for the promise of 10 jobs, 20 jobs, 30 jobs, even if it was 300 jobs, it's not enough for that kind of, okay, where does the abatements come from? It comes from your tax dollars.
Yep.
This has got to stop. the state and your counties cannot be negotiating tax incentives with your tax dollars without your vote.
Correct.
That has to stop. We shouldn't even be having this discussion about your property without a vote.
Yep.
Without a vote. There should be no, if Black Mountain is only going to, they're 100% going to negotiate abatements and tax. Should not be having this conversation without a vote, because that is my money.
Yep.
And that is your money.
Yep.
And so that's a key point on this. Oh, the other thing I think that's enticing, and is kind of why like our state representatives and our county commissioners are kind of like tiptoeing around this, and you alluded to it before, it's this kind of like big promise of infrastructure. So what Black Mountain is saying, so this is how the deal looks. I don't know the terms, but this is how hypothetically it looks. We're going to build a 3,000 acre facility. Don't worry, it's not going to affect your power. Don't worry, we're going to return a lot of water to the community. We're not going to talk about any of the details on it. We're going to do that. We're going to promise you 30 jobs.
30 permanent jobs.
30 permanent jobs.
Yep.
And then we're going to stimulate the economy for the 6 month, 8 month, 1 year build, because all these construction workers are going to come.
But they'll come in from out of town. They're not going to hire local. Yep.
100%. So they're not going to talk about any of that, because in the back pocket of these Black Mountain is the construction company too.
Oh, yeah.
Big
100%.
Construction companies. So what it comes down to, if you look at the fine details of this, the 3 restaurants and Bells, they probably got a little stimulant, right? But the roads are packed. They're beat up. Trucks are going to be going past your house and your grandma's house all the time. That's can be spun as the sound of progress, and it's BS.
It's BS.
And it's 100%, BS. The long-term jobs are security guards. There's some higher tech, but they're most likely not setting up shop here. Black Mountain's going to build Fort Worth. They're going to try to build here. They're going to be poking around any place that they can get. So again, keep out the needs, the data needs. This is a bad deal.
I looked at it from a strictly money perspective, and I was like, I would not make this deal long term for me. Yeah. And so I like I said, I took family land aside. It's been in the family 155 years, since 1871, and I was like, let me step back and see if this actually makes sense. And when I started looking at it, I was like, this makes no sense. Yeah. Unless if you are the data center. And it's shocking to me that they're just allowed to do some of this stuff. And some of their disclosures are trade secrets, so they don't have to disclose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's so wrong.
Yeah.
Like you could never get away with that. I couldn't get away with that.
No. No, 100%. I mean, they would, if we put if we got fed up with TCEQ and just put our septic in ourselves, we're talking about being arrested. Yep. Right. I mean, this is the this is the dirty little secret here. Yeah, it's a bad deal. But tell me a little bit about how, again, because this was my prayer this morning. I want peace for your families, because I can't even imagine how you function. You got a business, you're a realtor, right? You and your wife, realtors. So you're in the business of selling land and homes, right? We know that progress is happening here. And
like I said, we are pro progress. Yeah. I mean, obviously, but at some point you got to look and say, is this actually good for the community? Yeah. Or, and it's really.
Yeah, because you have kids, right? You have, how many kids you have?
2 kids.
Yeah, 2
and
kids.
They're young kids. They're 4.5, and one turns 2 next month.
Yeah. This is their legacy, right? Yeah. I have 3 kids,
That's funny you say that. Our place is named Legacy Farms.
Is it? Okay, cool. So it's your legacy. It's your, we feel the same way about the store and about all the, we want this area to be enjoyed for years to come. And we know that there's going to be things popping up and stuff like that. But when they got their hand in their pocket, you have to have a say.
Yep.
And how it's and how it's done. And between the non-answers on really the long-term water needs, the power should scare us all. I was kind of hoping that the ERCOT CEO was going to be a little bit more adamant about pushing back, like we can't handle it. But that's not his job. His job is to say, here's the current grid conditions, and here's based on what I'm being provided.
Right.
So I think it's important to note that the Texas Oversight Committee was there to discuss, I think, what they call it, a Mission Zero or
Batch
Batch Zero.
Batch zero.
So Batch Zero. So because there's so many
Mm-hmm.
data projects coming up, what was happening is they were requiring the companies like Black Mountain to do studies.
Yep.
And these studies take a while. And the studies, let's just say you're in month 5 of the study and you're talking about one data center. Well, what's happening is there's 5 other applications coming in, and now they all need independent studies. So now you're not talking about the potential burden of one data center. You're talking about the potential burden of 5 data centers. So they're talking about batching those studies, into one, which will still overwhelm the system. I think it's actually good progress in saying, hey, we got to review or, future growth. But the ERCOT CEO, you could tell, was under a lot of pressure because that I would never, and I apologize for using this word, that hideous display of representatives that sat up there in that Texas Oversight Committee were so jolly and excited about the big numbers being thrown around the room. They were basically looking down on him and saying, make it work.
Yep.
Do whatever you have to do to make it work.
Get it done. Yep.
Some of the comments in that, like we talked about a couple of days ago, was just like head shaking embarrassment of the conversation. Like not a single tough question answered. You had representatives saying, come down after this. Let's get started in our community. Like get started with a 2 million square foot facility that's going to suck your power and water dry without talking to what are you talking about right now? And who are you representing?
2 million square foot. That's got to be like 30 acres of a building.
Yeah, of actual building, and then the relief
right
on the side.
And so when you look at it like that, you're like 30 acres. Everybody can see how big an acre is, and it's like 30 of those.
Some of these data center facilities in Virginia have a 150-foot easement next to residential, and 50-foot particulate matter in the pollution and the air pollution alone is 2 to 3 miles around the facility. So you could literally see the fence of a data center while you watch your kids play in the backyard.
Yep.
And you're in the cloud. So I didn't want to complain about this. I feel like I'm starting to complain because again, take the AI data needs and everything out of the picture. This is a bad negotiation. The temporary jobs, the construction jobs are going to be, very little of them are going to be local. These just like when we used to build, hospitals and stuff like that, and we were with big hospital partners. They had their, perfect example is Baylor here in Texas. It's big. They have their construction company. So whether they build a Baylor up here by the Red River or they go down to Houston and they build a Baylor, the construction company is going down there. Yes, and they're going to go into the restaurant. They're going to use the hotels. They're going to do all that sort of stuff. It is not worth.
Nope.
That minimal economic impact is not worth. What you could be doing is supporting this kind of growth.
Yep.
Don't make it so hard for our neighbors to open up a restaurant. Don't make it so hard to open up a feed store. Don't make it so hard to borrow money. Right?
Yep.
We should have a better, all these can be part of your tax break, but this is a quick, fast,
it's a quick
fix in their eyes.
And it looks good for a campaign to say, I grew Grayson, but it's tax based by this much or whatever.
And Mason, look, you can't find them. Me and you have gone deep into the crazy dark world of the internet. I don't see a county official, mayor, standing in front of the camera like me and you right now being like, this has been the greatest thing that's ever happened to our community.
Yep. That should tell everyone a lot, because I called some of those places and I was like, what do y'all think about this?
Yeah.
100% of them. I have not heard one good thing from any elected official anywhere that has allowed a data center in.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm like, the numbers say we're probably not going to like it, and that's the stance that I've taken. I'm like, we need to be proactive rather than reactive. Slow down. Let's look at this, see if it actually makes sense. And the best plant going in is another good example, because that one snuck in. Nobody knew about it.
Yep. The best plan is that lithium
The battery
storage.
that is on my map right
Yep.
there next to all of this. The reason nobody knew about it, and that thing was built when we found out about it, was because they hired out of town crews. They
Yep.
stayed at the 2 RV parks. You talk to them and they will tell you they were booked plumb full for, however long that
Yep.
plant took to get built.
Yep.
And so I'm like, even the temporary jobs are going to be hired out. I'm like, so we're going to get very few of the temporary jobs. We'll get this much of the permanent job, but really they're going to do what like TI is doing and bring in people from DFW to do that. The only jobs that it will bring will be like the maintenance jobs, like the AC guys fixing stuff and stuff and things like that. And so again, I'm like, we're going to use up all of this land for maintenance jobs,
Well, and then all the abatements.
Right. Abatements.
So the promise. I mean, we're talking about allocating $20 million per job, right? Like that's how the tax break works out per job.
Like Black Mountain's building in Fort Worth that they're doing, it's a 75-foot tall building. Our volunteer fire department does not have a ladder that tall. So I mean, if there's a fire, I mean, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we have a hard time putting out grass fires. Like, it's not like there's fire hydrants everywhere we can just hook up to. Like, we don't. Yeah. They don't have that equipment.
Yeah, and if you look at that's a good. I'm glad you brought that up. So there's a project probably progressing a little bit further down the line in Fort Worth. I know there's some kickback. I was reading kind of the setup of that, the articles and everything directly related to that. And there was a quote in there that, and I'm just paraphrasing, but this is the part that scared me. It was there's a family legacy farm there. It's
You're talking about Weston Gardens?
Weston Gardens.
That's Black Mountains.
Yeah.
Sue Weston owns that.
Yep. So Sue Weston, I guess her son is
Jackson.
Jackson.
Yep.
And you can tell that over the time they're slowly being convinced, into doing this. It's probably why Black Mountain is based in Fort Worth.
Well, Sue's not selling to them.
But here's where the capture comes, and this is the scary part. You get a city council. Now, city council is big up there.
Yep.
Fort Worth is a big city.
Yep.
Haven't made many good decisions in the last 5 or 6 years. But it's a big city. The city council is quoted in the article saying, "This is just the effect of change. These are just a lot of legacy landowners. Everybody's scared of change."
Yep.
Are you kidding me right now?
Yep. She had that speech. I was at that meeting. She had that speech ready before.
Yeah.
And
it's like, what are you talking about? Like, here's the problem. Black Mountain's private.
Yep.
Rhett can go into the city council, take them all out to Topgolf or take them down to, Sundance Square, have a big dinner, boom, boom. And they all go, they've never met people like this.
And Rhett is a very likable guy.
Yeah. That's what
I keep telling people.
100%. You'd probably like all those guys that were sitting there from the data center council. I'm not saying they're bad people. They're being paid to build these.
Yep.
And they're being paid to convince you to build these. That is their job, and they are good at it.
My favorite thing about the Black Mountain Fort Worth one was they have been doing that one, I think, for 18 months. And sometime in January, they pushed back a meeting over the rezoning the last, I think, 87 acres because the city council members said they don't know enough about data centers. And I'm like, then why did we not do this at the beginning? Like, y'all are waiting, there's 450 acres down here. Y'all rezoned, 325 acres-ish?
Yeah.
And I'm like, now on the last 87 acres, y'all are going to step back and try to learn about data centers? And I'm like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
Like, that should not be a thing. Like, y'all should have done that day one.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I, the community, we can start educating.
Yep.
And again, we're not going to burn anybody's bulldozers. We're not going to light fire to the data. This is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about picket signs. We're talking about supporting our county commissioners, our community, our state representatives. We a mutual friend, Shelley Luther, we have the voices.
Yep.
And we got to do it. We
in a respectful
way, an intelligent way, can rally the masses. And we got to do it before the fact.
Right.
That's my main goal. It's not that I don't want them, but there's millions of square feet of unused parking lots down in downtown Dallas, right? There's high rises and stuff. And I know they're probably not perfectly positioned to the grade and water, but if there's all this money available and that can have a better economic impact to the surrounding area, then why are you forcing, I mean, we're this close to getting, eminent domain, where the state's allowing these guys to do eminent domain. I mean, you can feel the tension. You can feel that tension coming.
There's a piece on my map my grandma lives on. I'm not kidding you. They will eminent domain that piece. They may not do it while she's alive. She's 85. They may wait until, she's gone, but they need that piece.
Yep.
And I know they need it. They know that I know that. And if they don't get that piece, it makes the two pieces next to them almost worthless.
Yeah.
Because of setback lines and all of that. And so, yeah, I'm definitely worried about it. And Shelly told me at one point, or commented something on Facebook, she kind of said I was making that up, or she hasn't heard of anyone being eminent domain, and it won't come from Profound. It'll come from, Encore or something. No, eminent domain's been on my heart since middle of February last year, because when he hung his head, and the feeling I got was, I was like, they're just going to take it.
Yeah.
And like I said, they've got us surrounded.
Yeah. And he doesn't want to, but he knows, he knows that he'll be able to pull that string when, when it comes. Our goal is to support our local representatives until they let us down.
Yep.
I mean, and if they're taking checks on the side, if they're
I'm watching campaign contributions now.
I mean, it's when I went down the TCEQ rabbit hole and to see how many politicians are, benefiting from these hundreds of millions of dollars of grants, and how, there's the Great Air Coalition and the Green Grass Coalition, and they're all, tentacles to TCEQ and all these other things. I mean, we're getting close. There's too much money being passed around. And there's too many backdoor conversations. So I think we have to support them until they let us down, and then change the tactics. But I think what I want to see is better questions being asked.
Very much.
But more community support, because it affects 100% of us. It's not that we don't want the progress. This is not the right progress. It's not the right progress to take your land, to, throw millions and millions of dollars onto the table to try to convince people that this is a good idea. Matter of fact, that should raise all the red flags, right? That should be the thing that scares us all, right? It's not a tinfoil hat conspiracy anymore when there's that kind of money. And the origins of data centers are Northern Virginia. Are you kidding me?
Well,
literally one county over from DC.
This one is close to two schools. I mean, Bells and Savoy, and the TCEQ permits that are approved last August, they're going right next to the Savoy schools. Like, you will be able to probably see them. It backs up to, from the Savoy school park. You should be able to see those things. And I'm like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, factor in that's next to a school, close to a BESS plant, on the same piece of property as the BESS plant, right next to natural gas pipelines. Like, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, nothing. It's going to be great. You know? And then the other thing that people need to be aware of, we're talking about a microcosm of, the bigger picture here with your piece. Obviously I want to see your project paused, changed, them just go, hey, this is.
Yeah, I'll list all the land that they have already bought. We'll list it for free.
Yeah, that's right. We won't take any commission. Yeah. So we want to see those pause and stuff, and we want to see a better direction and kind of the planning of these.
Yep.
We want to see communities having the opportunity to vote when they're talking about abatements and stuff like that. They should vote. And they should stay close. And then, because it doesn't exist right now, somebody needs to have the conversation about data. Somebody needs to educate everyone. Walking into the Texas Oversight Committee and just saying AI over and over again, okay, and crypto and all this other stuff over and over again, and then just leaving it at that. I mean, we geeked out. Me and you geeked out on megawatts, and we're trying to get educated on how all this works and the need. Let's geek out on data.
Yep.
Let's find out really what
it's for.
Because the reality of this is it's all over the place. It's passing down 902 right now through the, GCEC was nice enough to put in fiber down here, and it's just amazing. It's created a whole nother world for the rural, the rural community and businesses along 902 and Tom Bean and Leonard and every place else. Right. So let's geek out about the data needs. Okay. And let's geek out about, do they really need to be
right
in these green spaces? Do we have another alternative? Where's Elon on putting data processing in space? Let's talk about the progress of that, because I don't want one in Bells and Savoy if we're 2 years away from
from that. Yeah.
from a better option, right? So again, it's not to attack, Rhett and Black Mountain and all these guys. It's just to have a better conversation, and it's not happening right now.
And I'm going to quote Rhett. What he told us last week, I think it was the 8th, and down in Fort Worth, was he said the Fort Worth one was in the 7th inning. He said he would say that ours is in the 2nd inning. And what I'm trying to tell everybody, like Texoma, if you're listening, like, we didn't even know there was a game scheduled. Like, they're already in the 2nd inning. And I'm like, we didn't know we were even supposed to show up.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, at what point were they going to, if I didn't sound the alarm, at what point were they going to do it in the process? Were they going to get halfway through the game and be like, hey, by the way, y'all can come play now? And so I'm like, we need to get educated. We need to get organized now. We need to ask these questions now. We need to talk to any elected official now and kind of get ahead of the curve here, because we're already behind.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, I know, I think you're in the works of kind of organizing a coalition on this side.
Yep.
Just the members of the community.
There's a whole bunch of us.
Yeah, people think that you can, represent. I'm happy that you and I talked about it, invited me in, and I'm certainly, interested. And again, I gave you my stance pretty clear. Like, I'm not holding up a sign, I'm not doing all that stuff, but I'm certainly willing to have the conversations with all parties.
Yep.
And make sure we're presented properly. You said, personally, I want your family land protected 100%. Just getting to know you and seeing your beautiful family and stuff like this. This is the stuff that progress doesn't talk about, that we need to have the discussions about. So tell me a little bit about the coalition that you guys are putting together.
So it's going to be, well, we'll announce that later on.
Okay.
Sunday, Monday
Yeah.
is when we plan on doing that.
Okay, great.
But yeah, there's a lot of people fired up. Like, since I made my post, I probably have 300 people reach out to me directly.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm talking, they're fired up. Like, I run into people at the gas station or, wherever, and they recognize me, from and everyone's fired up.
Yeah.
The only people that are not fired up are the, HVAC guys, the guys like that, they're like, hey, we want the contract, and like, they're kind of funny about it. But other than that, literally 100% of the people I talk to are fired up.
Yeah. Because what happens if they don't get the contract? What happens when a company comes from out of state, and brings their guys in?
Good question.
You have to, that's why our compass on this needs to be clear. This is about the future for our children and the future for this environment up here in North Texas. That's regardless if you carve a few bucks out of this, and maybe it's life-changing money. Who knows? Was it the prophet Judah? Was it Judah who took the money?
Yep.
And then he would try to go back after the fact, and he was just replaced.
Yep.
You can take the money right now. You can buy your new F-350, do all that stuff that you want to do, and maybe put some money in the bank for your kids. But you have to know that we're not taking the money back.
Yep.
When you regret it, the money's not coming back. You can throw it at the church, you can throw it at the steps of the temple, but it won't matter at that point.
Yep.
So we have to be really clear. We have to be really clear about the impacts of that. So, we'll stay. Do you have anything? I know you're full of.
I've got a lot. We could talk for hours.
But I think we can do more.
Yep.
For sure. I think it's important to kind of introduce.
Yep.
The challenge here, the task. I'm super grateful for not only your time, but also, like, I know the burden this is on your family. You're leaving a very positive legacy for your kids. Dads and mom are fighting for this, and it's important for your family's land. It's all we got anymore, man. It's all we got. There's no marketplace anymore. There's no nothing. If we want to leave a legacy for our kids, it's usually got grass and memories on it. Yep. That's it, right? It's a spot of dirt, right? And it's worth protecting. I think, we can continue to have this conversation. I hope everybody gets to listen, starts following you. I'll put all the links and everything in there. When you guys get to announcing the coalition, let me know. We'll put all together, but you have another soldier in this fight.
And I appreciate it.
I hope we can get a bunch more soldiers in the fight. And then, just keep producing that content, and I will do the same. I'll, every time there's something to talk about, to post about, or a meeting that's happening, it can't be just people like me and you showing up.
Oh no. Yeah.
No, we need to start packing the.
Yep.
We need to start
pack
packing the house, and we need to, like, we're talking about this with kind of this new school board trend of everybody complaining and nobody showing up. Which happens a lot. If you do the force in numbers, like you said, like a well-organized coalition, you could have you in Austin, me in Grayson County, and we're asking the same question.
Same questions, yeah.
And we're compiling the results.
Yep.
And we're informing the people. We could be having, so we're not having, we're not arguing all different points that are personal. We're asking the same questions, and we're demanding, the better answer.
And we can accomplish a lot more than
that. Yep. Because our goal would be to have these guys redirect their efforts into, improving crumbling infrastructure instead of crumbling, crumbling really good, green space and legacy land around here, and taking advantage of that loophole in Texas that you buy it, you own it, you can do whatever you want with it, and that's not.
My response to that, I think I told you this the other day, is, if I'm target shooting and my bullet leaves my fence and hits your cow, that's my fault.
Yep.
Same thing with pollution. If you may be able to do whatever you want to do, but as soon as it leaves your land, I'm like, that's your fault.
Yep.
And we're not holding these guys accountable.
Yeah.
I mean, we're giving them a pass.
Yeah.
Which obviously I'm against. I mean,
yeah.
They've got all the money. They've had all the passes in the world.
Yeah.
And they don't give you and me those passes.
No. No. We certainly don't. We have to fight and earn our way through all that. And, there's no handouts. Well, let's keep talking about it, man. I super appreciate you being here. We're, like I said, we're just kind of getting started with this. We love the county. We love the history of the county. We're trying to just educate people. We wanted people to be, really passionate about, the places they live. And we know there's a lot of growth coming this way.
Yep.
It's,
yeah.
I used to say all the time, progress is inevitable, but success is not guaranteed.
Yep.
So we can really do it bad. We can fall flat on our face regardless. So,
yep.
But yeah, let's keep talking, brother. And I appreciate you, man. And we'll keep praying for you and your family. And
I will take it.
And yeah, I know you will. And let's just hope for good conversation moving forward and good outcomes for everybody.
My man. Thank you.
I appreciate you, brother.
Yep.